Yo, yo, get up, nah I ain't a quitter. Toss me the ball, I'm a really big hitter. Big picture, I'm a straight killer. Rising the song to the highest bidder. Got juice, got gas, I'ma move fast. New shoes, new tracks, like who's that? I'm new, come back, better than last. Yeah, it's a new me, never gonna look back. Never gonna look back. Cause damn, I was built to last. You move slow and I move fast, and that's facts.
What up, Chicago? How's everybody doing tonight? Thanks for joining us. Know the playoff game is going on right now. It's about to be halftime. We'll get you out of here before the second half kicks off. Brandon, what's up, man? How you doing tonight?
All
I'm
right, man.
good.
How
We
about
just
you?
finished up our House Hall Hangover on the 4 stars. Please go check that out if y'all got the time. We got Bradley already in the building. James, thanks for joining us, man. Guys, bear down. Good to have you here. Keep the comments coming. We'll touch on this Bears head coaching search, all the news that's coming out here, and anything else y'all want to touch on. Brandon, Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys did not come to a contract agreement, so two things happened there because of that, right? Mike McCarthy then becomes an option in this head coaching search, and the Bears are interviewing everybody, so you know they're going to interview Mike McCarthy. And the Cowboys now are part of this head coaching fray, and that's now an opening that a head coach can consider. So, what do you think is the bigger story out of that? Mike McCarthy being available for the Bears, or more competition on in this head coaching search from the Cowboys for the Bears?
I would say Mike McCarthy being available for the Bears because it looks like the Bears are looking for. It's it's very strange how this Bears coaching search has started. So, to me, they're looking for one of two things: Ben Johnson as a whole, all that is, or a culture guy who has coached successfully in the NFL before, a head coach. And Pete Carroll checks those boxes. Mike McCarthy checks those boxes. Vrabel's
It's kind
gone.
of the same
So
conversation, though,
I
right?
think, but I do want to say, this. I don't know how much speculation there is. Sean reported to us a little bit ago that it appears as if
Right.
Jerry Jones is in talks with Deion
Oh yeah,
Sanders.
that's a big story, man. I think Deion Sanders is a good head coach. I really do, and I think that could work out in Dallas. He's got the connection there with them. So, but I mean, more Bears focus. The conversation was Vrabel and Ben Johnson. It becomes a similar conversation between Mike McCarthy and Ben Johnson. It becomes a similar conversation between Pete Carroll and Ben Johnson. You got Bears fans that are looking for that offensive minded guy that's going to get this creative offense going and develop the young QB. And you got Bears fans that want the culture and the identity and a leader who has done it before. So if you were on one side or the other, I think you're still in the same place, to be quite honest. It's just the candidates are a little different. I think Vrabel was the best option, but I don't think Mike McCarthy and Pete Carroll should be considered consolation prizes. I think those are guys that have established themselves as good, successful head coaches in the NFL, and they're not bad choices to have if you're a Chicago Bears fan or the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, no, like I said, both established, and the difference is, with just any old ex-coach too, Dustin. Like the Bears hired John Fox when I thought it didn't make any sense, and he wasn't really at a good point of his career. Is Mike McCarthy, Mike Vrabel, Pete Carroll, all winning head coaches up until the day. Well, Pete Carroll up until the day that he stepped away or was kind of forced to resign, and Mike McCarthy up until even now. So I mean, these guys. The one thing that I believe, Dustin, if you say to me Mike McCarthy's going to be your head coach of the Chicago Bears or Pete Carroll, is they're going to win games.
Yeah, man, they are. And oh, we got another one joining us here. Kyle, what up, man?
Can't hear you guys. Hold on.
What's going on,
How
Kyle?
you doing? Thanks for joining us, Kyle. Listen, my is Kyle here with us, or
I don't think he can
that's
hear
weird.
us.
That's on his end because we're all good over here. Listen, I think Mike McCarthy is a solid option, and Bradley and threw in here earlier. Bring him on; he's all for it. I think that again, it's a certain you want a certain thing out of this Bears head coach that this next Bears head coach. I don't know if Ben Johnson brings it. Mike McCarthy won 50 games, 49 games as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. They were successful in what they were doing. So, I mean, and Mike McCarthy has that proven track record. So, I mean, does Mike McCarthy become a favorite of yours over Pete Carroll, who was already in this conversation, has already interviewed with the Chicago Bears, Brandon?
No, because I like what Pete Carroll presents after his tenure with the Chicago Bears. I would imagine Pete Carroll's close to the finish line. It seems like he's pretty eager to coach once again, but let's say Pete Carroll hangs it up in 3-4 years.
How can you hear us
Kyle,
now?
it's funny that he's popping in here now.
Yeah, what's up?
Kyle,
Okay, there he is.
it's funny that Kyle's popping in now because he was the first to mention it. Really, Pete Carroll establishes a successful organization, right? He establishes success, and then he leaves an organization with sustainable success. So if Pete Carroll's your head coach and he's only got a few more years in the tank because he's getting there in age, I believe that he'll leave this organization in the right place. Guys, again, we're talking about
That's the most
culture,
important
Dustin,
thing, a
right?
leader.
Pete Carroll
Yeah.
gives you a culture. And a lot of times when a good coach establishes a culture for an organization, it remains.
And Pete Carroll has done that, like you said, in the past. Kyle, where are you at with this Mike McCarthy thing? How are you feeling about him becoming available? Does he supplant Pete Carroll as that retread head coach that has had success for you, or are you leaning towards a Pete Carroll over a Mike McCarthy?
Yeah, I'm definitely leaning towards Pete Carroll over Mike McCarthy. No disrespect to Mike McCarthy. I know he's had success in the NFL, but I could argue in a million different ways that he should have had more. And I don't think Mike McCarthy is the right answer for the Chicago Bears right now. I don't know if I'd necessarily say that Mike McCarthy changes a culture. I mean, he's been on two teams that have been great organizations since their existence, and the Packers and the Cowboys. Coming to the Chicago Bears with the place we're in right now, the infrastructure or lack thereof, I don't know if Mike McCarthy is capable of fixing that. I think Pete Carroll has proven that he can do that with both the USC and the Seattle Seahawks. So he would definitely be my favorite of the two for sure.
And CSP is in the building. Hit that like button, guys. Hit that subscribe button. Share it with everybody you love. We bring you content every day of the week. Monsters of the Madhouse, Chicago Sports Podcast. You can find all three of us on the 4-Star Chicago Sports Network as well. Just did a show earlier, the House Hall Hangover. Hit us up. I mean, and that's a crazy thing to think about, right? Because Mike McCarthy has coached the Green Bay Packers, the Dallas Cowboys, and what if he ends up coaching the Chicago Bears? How many head coaches have that kind of tenure where they've gone from like those are three of the charter like big name franchises in the NFL.
The first two organizations in sports and America's team.
Like that would be a hell of a resume to go out with if you could coach the Packers, Cowboys, and Bears in your tenure. And we had mentioned earlier that the Cowboys job is now open. There's a report out there that Deion Sanders has been contacted by Jerry Jones, and they're going to continue to discuss the potential for him to be the next head coach. I like Sanders. I think that could work out. But does this the other side of this coin, guys, does this Cowboys job being open impact the Chicago Bears in terms of getting the best candidate available? That's the biggest concern of mine out of this whole thing.
I mean, for me personally, no. I think Ben Johnson would probably prefer the Bears over the Cowboys. And right now, that's the coach that I want the Bears to hire. And if it's not him, it would be Pete Carroll. And Pete Carroll has already come out and said that the Chicago Bears would be his preferred location. Now, obviously, that was before the Cowboys got rid of their coach, Mike McCarthy. But as far as I could tell, I mean, until we're told otherwise, right? Until he comes out and updates his desired location, I'd still say that the Bears are probably the front runners and probably due in part to Caleb Williams. I think every coach that's interested in this Bears job is probably interested due in large part to Caleb Williams and in Rome Odunze and this young core that the Bears have implemented here. Now, obviously, if you come to the Chicago Bears, you're going to have to fix up a lot of mistakes here, including the offensive line, which is a big one. But I'd still say the Bears are probably, with their their cap space and free agency and the draft they're about to have, I'd say that they're still one of the front runners for the most wanted jobs by any head coach agent.
Are you choosing the Cowboys or the Bears if you're a head coach in the open market right now?
I think it depends upon who you are, man. I agree with. I think if you're a Pete Carroll, you prefer Chicago, where you're going to have probably a little more control. And I think if you're I don't know if you're a Ben Johnson, honestly, Dustin. I think
Really,
Dallas is more.
that's gonna make a lot of Bears fans sad to hear that.
I mean, you have a quarterback who's under contract who's proven he can take you to the playoffs, and you're not in a division that's almost impossible.
Yeah, but Bernard, has that quarterback proven that he's not capable of winning Super Bowls?
Is he proven he's not capable? No, I don't think that.
So
Yeah, I mean,
Dak
Dak Prescott gets a bad rap, but he's a better quarterback than he gets credit for, too.
I don't think he's a bad quarterback. I don't think I would not necessarily going to pick him ever to win a Super Bowl. I don't think Dak Prescott will win a Super Bowl. I don't think he has what it takes, man. I think first of all, he hasn't been healthy in his career. Second of all, he's played poorly in big moments, and unless that changes drastically, I'd much rather embrace something with the ceiling of Caleb Williams than go to a team where Dak Prescott, you know how he performs. You've seen the tape, you've seen the film. He's had good teams around him. They had one of the best offenses of lines in football for the better part of 10 years. They had
They had one of the best offenses in football last year, too. So, I mean, like the Cowboys.
How come you can't get the job done,
What I will say is this, Dustin. I don't know how it impacts the Bears. I do know this. The Bears got behind in the race for Mike Vrabel. Okay. The Bears are now ahead of the Cowboys in the race for any one of the candidates the Bears like. So if you like Pete Carroll, if that's your guy, go get him. Don't wait for the Cowboys to call him. Just go do it.
Squeegee smashed the like button so hard, China has a thumb-sized protrusion on that side of Earth. Okay, thanks, Squeegee. I appreciate that.
What would you guys say if the candidate they really want, and that's their guy, is Ben Johnson? Would you wait?
Listen, the Bears are going to wait.
Of course.
The Bears are going to wait, guys.
If that's the conviction, if you want conviction in if that's your guy, Ben Johnson, if you were thinking this, Brian Poles, I mean, you obviously you're thinking before you do these interviews, but if you're thinking throughout this interview process and even after, man, that Zoom call with Ben Johnson I had still strikes me the most. That's the guy I want for this job. Yeah, you gotta wait. But when you wait, you go aggressively.
This is going to be. We're in it for the long haul, I think, here with the Chicago Bears. They have so many candidates that they still haven't talked to, that they've requested interviews for. Whether or not all those requests will be accepted or have been accepted, I don't think that's been fully reported. But all these guys are deep into playoff runs. A lot. I mean, Todd Monken with the Ravens, Joe Brady with the Bills, Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson with the Lions. These coordinators that are hot, and Brian Flores right now. These coordinators that are hot, right? They're in it for the long haul, and they're hoping to stay in it. And I think some of them will. I think if you're talking about Ben Johnson, the Lions are in it for a deep run. So, I mean, the Bears are going to wait, okay? But, do you want to be the last team that hires a head coach in this cycle with all the options that are available, guys? Do you think that it makes sense for the Bears to play the long game and show some patience here?
Brandon?
I think if there's a guy that you want, you go get it. And I think that's the problem with having 20 names on your list is have you stretched yourself so thin with resources that other teams know what the hell they want. They've done their due diligence and they're going after it, man. Like I said, guys, I looked at the Jaguars list today. It was 8 names. That was the longest list I saw outside of the 20 on the Bears. So these teams have a little more conviction, Dustin. They know what the hell they want. So the Bears need to start slimming that list down.
I've said it 100 times on this podcast and 4-Star Chicago Sports. I'm never going to complain about the Bears doing too much work, man. If they want to interview 20 guys, fine. So be interview 20 guys. But when they cut their second interview candidates down, so the guys who they think are going to be a potential coach for the Chicago Bears, and they cut it down to, let's say, 5 or 6, all those guys get second interviews, then you should start to know who you want, right? You should be leaning towards somebody, and you're just trying to start narrowing it down and eliminate the guys who obviously won't be an option here. I have no problem with them interviewing everybody, but like Brendan said, in a few weeks, once it gets down to the nitty-gritty, if they're really going to wait for Ben Johnson, you need to have narrowed it down to a few guys before you have your second in-person interview with Ben Johnson. You can't have 20 guys on the table.
No, yeah. You got to have conviction here, too, and you got to have a sense of urgency as well. If we were talking, guys, just Pete Carroll or Mike McCarthy as our options. If you're going with the culture guy, Chicago Sports Podcast puts it out right here. Chat, you guys are popping off. You guys are doing great. We got 50 in here right now that I see. Love y'all. Thanks for being here. Put a P in the chat for Pete Carroll. Put an M in there for Mike McCarthy. Let's see who you guys want. I want to know who you guys want, okay? P for Pete, M for Mike. Keep the chat rolling, guys. And James Childress is killing it, so we appreciate you. Chicago Sports Podcast. because Dano says he's concerned Johnson going to the Raiders. That's scaring him. Who's the Raiders QB, right? Is you mentioned it, Kyle? Is that a big enough appeal for the Chicago Bears that they should be? I mean, Vrabel's off the table. Vrabel was the guy I think a lot high on a lot of people's list across the NFL. Dan Blademore puts a P for Pete Carroll. Appreciate that, Dan. But is Caleb the X factor that draws that next head coach in here? Is that enough? Because we see that Drake May is the quarterback for the Patriots, and that was enough for Vrabel. So Caleb, is he the difference between all these other guys in terms of the competition for these head coaches?
He certainly is for me. I mean, I can't speak for any of these coaches, but I will say, I mean, I think that having an established quarterback, I mean, I think every single one of these coaching potential candidates can see the talent in Caleb Williams. They probably believe they can get more out of him than the previous Bears coaching staff. I also believe that the Bears roster as a whole, if you just look at if you look at the core of the roster, the guys who are like Jalen Johnson, DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, obviously Caleb Williams, Roman Dunze are both going to be on 5-year contracts. I think Javon Dexter is going to be a very good player for a very long time. I don't think he's like some dominant 3 technique, but he could be a 10-sack guy in his prime. The Bears have Montez Sweat on the end. They need to fix the other end. Their secondary is certainly better than they looked this season, due in part to the fact that they have no pass rush. But you got love guys like Kyler Gordon. If Quad Brisker can get healthy, he's a great player. Jalen Johnson's a great player. I think Tyreek Stevenson has potential. I mean, this roster has a lot of appeal. Roster is littered with talent. You just have to find the guy who can utilize it, and you have to find the guy who can plug the holes and find the holes he thinks are most important to fix right now. But I think every coach in the NFL should be looking at this Bears job and saying, that is my best chance to succeed of all these teams. Maybe the Patriots, but obviously they're now out of the race because they have young quarterback and Drake May, and they have the most money of any team in free agency. But right now, I think it's the Chicago Bears. I think that's tough to argue, guys, right? I mean, how can you argue against Caleb Williams, what he did for Chicago here, the 5th leading passer of all time in Chicago Bears history? You obviously can see that there's potential and he's going to get better at some point in his career, right?
Yeah. Brandon, you think that's what is going to put the Bears over the top in terms of this frenzied market for head coaches choosing the team?
I think it should, because I think retaining opportunity is just important as gaining it in the NFL. I mean, let's be honest, guys, this league has gone a specific way. It's opportunities are short and not sweet, right? Gerard Mayo just got fired after a season. You've got about 4 years that you need to make this happen. And if you're early quarterback and not having it, it's not going to reflect good on you. I mean, so if you've got a guy in the building that, like, let's say you're Ben Johnson, if you believe in Caleb Williams, if you trust that's your guy for the future, yes, you're in a much better position than you are in the Raiders, looking through what I find especially to be a weak draft class for your next guy, because you're forced to.
Yeah. And when you're talking Raiders and Bears, man, they're both in tough divisions. That's been my biggest focus on this, is like, if you're taking the Bears head coaching job, guys, you're in the NFC North. That's the toughest division in football. It's going to be an uphill battle to find that success right away. I think it's going to be hard to win this division if you're the Chicago Bears next year. But it's kind of similar for the Raiders, right? I mean, you got the Chiefs, you got the Chargers, both playoff teams, Broncos, playoff team. You got 3 playoff teams in both of those divisions that you're going to be going up against. So I don't think the Raiders really have an edge there. The Raiders got Tom Brady, and that's being talked about in the chat. Munoz says Ben Johnson is the clear choice, guys. We're talking Pete Carroll, we're talking Mike McCarthy, but I mean, Ben Johnson, what he's doing in Detroit has been really impressive for years now, and I think that's Kyle's number one guy. So Kyle, why is Ben Johnson the obvious choice for the Chicago Bears?
Well, for me, Dustin, this time around, when it comes to finding head coach, the most important thing to me is going to be the marriage between the quarterback and the head coach. And I think Ben Johnson, probably just with how young and innovative and how easy he's made it for Jared Goff to succeed, just how he runs that offense there, I think that's the best case scenario for Caleb Williams. Maybe it's not the best case scenario for the Chicago Bears, but as long as Caleb Williams can get better and succeed in the NFL, I think ultimately the rest of the team will kind of follow suit. I think if Ben Johnson can come here and make it as easy on Caleb Williams as he has Jared Goff, get him open throws, layups, dump offs, good run game, give him some infrastructure, give him an identity, make it easier to play quarterback in the NFL, I don't see how you could possibly argue against it. I mean, the most important thing for this team going forward is the development of Caleb Williams. I think we all agree on that, right? I think Ben Johnson would be the quickest coach of any of the potential free agent head coaches to demand that the Bears address the offensive line. And I think he's going to create a great relationship with Caleb Williams that could last for maybe the next 10, 15 years. They're both very young. Obviously, Caleb Williams going in his second year. Ben Johnson's in his late 30s. This could be a great marriage for the next 15 years. I know it's tough to take a chance at a coach who's never had coaching experience, but everybody's got to start somewhere, right? And if there's anybody in the NFL who everybody kind of general consensus feels like he deserves a head coaching job, even with no experience, it's Ben Johnson. I think the Bears should look at it. And you guys, obviously, I don't know if you guys saw it or not, but Sports Mockery came out with an article that the Bears interview with Ben Johnson, the first interview, the virtual one, that interview went very well by both sides. Both sides were very happy with the result of that interview. And it seems like he's probably their number one candidate.
I think he probably should be at this point, given the way we went into this coaching search with Vrabel and Johnson being the top two. And I think Bears fans are going to be disappointed if they don't come away with one of those two. To be honest, Ben Johnson has shown himself to be a guy who can be creative with the run game, a guy who knows that what a good offensive line can do for an offense. I'm not opposed to Ben Johnson at all. I think I would be pretty happy with that. I lean more towards a Mike McCarthy or a Pete Carroll type, honestly, and I think I'd probably take Pete Carroll over Mike McCarthy as well. But Brandon, what's the upside of getting a guy like Ben Johnson over these guys that have this previous experience?
And most importantly, he's young, and the growth with the young quarterback. You would like, I mean, if you hire Ben Johnson, the idea in a perfect world is that Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams are your quarterback and your head coach of this team for the next 10 years, and successfully, right? And I also do think Kyle is correct in saying, I mean, Ben Johnson has done a really good job at making quarterback-friendly offenses, right? He gets the best out of players. He's put Jahmyr Gibbs in a hell of a position since losing Montgomery. I mean, Johnson's good with personnel, but he's also just good with scheming players open. And the Bears are already good at that on top of the fact that they're some of the best yards after catch players in the league. Ben Johnson, I have no doubt my mind would thrive running an offense in Chicago, Dustin. That's the pro. That's the pro. Him and Caleb will grow together. The con for me is the same as you, Dustin. I don't know. The culture thing is a big question mark. And that's a box that needs to be checked for me before I hire someone.
Well, for sure. And then it's the whole thing of the amount of dysfunction that this Bears team has gone through over the last 15 years, guys. Does that rub off on a rookie head coach versus a tenured head coach who has these experiences, who's been through these things and dealt with different owners and dealt with different GMs and dealt with the team losing itself in the middle of the season, or a team with momentum needing to carry that on? Like, these things are positives that Ben Johnson just cannot check off. It's not possible. He hasn't done it. He's seen Dan Campbell do it. He's been next to Dan Campbell while he's doing it, but Ben Johnson has not been that guy for the Detroit Lions. So offensively, I think that he would bring a lot of good things to this team, and I'm not opposed to those things at all. It's just, I think that the more important thing for the Chicago Bears team is to change their identity, develop a culture that's built around accountability, and I just don't know if Ben Johnson can do that.
Kyle, Dustin, are you guys calling Deion Sanders?
What's that?
If word is he's available, are you calling Deion Sanders, Bears?
I mean, I would.
Vacancy?
I don't think the Bears are going to, but I would for sure.
I would. I mean, if it's going to be with somebody like we talked about with no experience at the NFL level, so it's got to be a guy who is proven he can have a successful unit in the NFL. To me personally, I just don't think Deion Sanders has had enough experience coaching in general to be the head coach for the Chicago Bears. That's nothing against Deion Sanders. I'm sure he's a good coach. I'm sure years with a few more years under his belt of experience, he'll probably end up being a very good coach in the NFL. But I wouldn't be the first team to take a chance on him.
Let's transition to another guy who would be the first guy, the first team to take a chance on him would be Marcus Freeman. I mean, Notre Dame took a chance on him. He just signed an extension at Notre Dame, but the Bears have apparently done extensive research on him. They're enamored with him, and they've requested an interview. Whether or not that permission will be granted, we don't know yet. But what are your guys' thoughts on Marcus Freeman? We can't really speculate on whether it came out today that he's happy where he's at. The chances of him moving on are pretty low. But where would he, if he was a legitimate candidate, where would he rank on your list, Brandon?
He would rank number one on my list. Yeah, I like Ben Johnson a lot. I liked Mike Vrabel a lot. Pete Carroll is mine. I like Pete Carroll and Ben Johnson are at the top of my list. But if Freeman became available, he would be number one.
Hell yeah, Kyle. What about you?
He wouldn't be number one, but I certainly am intrigued by Marcus Freeman. I would honestly have no problem at all with the Bears getting an in-person interview with him. I think he's proven that he can change a culture. I mean, that team, people have been complaining about Notre Dame not maximizing the potential and falling short for years. He gets there, and all of a sudden they're in the national championship game. I think Marcus Freeman
3 years
is more like an NFL coach. I think the transition would be a little bit easier for him because he plays defense and runs the ball. You know, it's not like this primetime Colorado team that has to throw for Travis Hunter has to have 300 yards receiving. He just knows football fundamentals. I think he would actually be my favorite college coach to become the Bears' next head coach. He would be my favorite, my number one pick when it comes to collegiate level. But I still like Ben Johnson and Pete Carroll better than I like Marcus Freeman. I just think there's more risk with Marcus Freeman being never coached in the NFL at any position ever.
For sure. He's been a head coach of an entire that team is a big team. There's a lot that goes into being a head coach at the collegiate level too. A lot of recruiting, the transfer portal now. I mean, and there's money being divvied out now. So it changes things from that college to the pros jump in my mind. Marcus Freeman would be very high on my list. He's a guy who's demanding, he's energetic, he's motivational, he's a guy who focuses on running the football and playing solid defense, which is exactly what the Chicago Bears need. Okay, we got all these weapons. That's great. No offensive line. Quarterback gets sacked 68 times. If he can't make a throw to Keenan Allen off his back, guys. So, I mean, like, you establish the run 100%. That's what the Bears need to focus on to win this NFC North back, like some people in our chat are talking about. And I think Marcus Freeman is a guy who could do that for you. Listen, the chat is going crazy. We got over 50 in the building, and it's been hard to keep up with all y'all. But we appreciate everybody for being here. We want to thank Trax, founder of CSP,
Thanks,
right? And thank you guys for showing up tonight and showing out. I'm having a lot of fun here. Is there anything we're missing, like this head coaching search, the head coaching options, anything you guys want to get out there? Any guys that are like maybe off the radar that maybe we could think about? You guys could put them on our mind. Anybody y'all have in mind that's not being talked about as much as the guys we've already discussed?
No, I mean, there's nobody that I would say that would be anywhere near the likes of Pete Carroll or Ben Johnson or Marcus Freeman. I think all three of those guys would be really good head coaching hires. But I will say, I think of all the guys, this list that the Bears put together, you know, at the end of the season, we were kind of laughing about Thomas Brown and his head coaching interview. But I would take Thomas Brown over a lot of these guys, a lot. I'd take him over Brian Flores, David Shaw, Mike McCarthy, Arthur Smith.
Mike McCarthy? Really?
Yeah. I take him over Mike Kafka. I take him over Aaron Glenn.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's like crazy. I'll finish on this, Dustin.
I like Thomas Brown.
I think that
okay.
I hate to even say this, but I think that Cliff Kingsbury is a much realer possibility than Bears fans.
Then we want to admit he keeps coming up over and over again. Every time you see the reporting about these head coaching candidates out there, Cliff Kingsbury keeps coming up as a perfect match for the Chicago Bears. And I get a weird.
We've all said it, guys. On 4 stars, you can't interview this guy for a lesser position last offseason and not hire him because he just wasn't good enough, right? And he had worked with your quarterback that you were drafting first overall in college, but still not the right fit, oddly enough. And now you're going to interview him for a head coaching job. It's the Bearsiest thing.
Yeah,
if he wasn't good enough
I said that immediately.
Your head coach.
Yeah, I said that immediately. Went to you guys when this whole Cliff Kingsbury thing came out. Like Cliff Kingsbury, you can't go back and try to fix a mistake you already made by doubling down and potentially making a bigger mistake. I think Cliff Kingsbury is
because he would have been a good.
I think he's a damn good offensive coordinator. He's showing that, and
yeah.
Washington is moving on to the playoffs, and he's a part of that. But I don't want him as my head coach. His record in the second half of seasons is established as terrible. And I don't want any.
Yeah, he loses a locker room. Man.
Yeah, I don't want any part of that, man. Chicago Sports Podcast says Farmer Fran for head coach. He's throwing him out as a dark horse. Farmer Fran from Waterboy. Yeah, I mean, listen. The crazy one that I'll throw out there, I don't think there's a chance in hell, but Mike Tomlin would immediately jump to the top of my list if Pittsburgh was dumb enough to move on from him, guys. Immediately. He would fit Chicago perfectly. And Kyle, I appreciate your love for Thomas Brown. Thomas Brown, it's good that he got that interview. Thomas Brown believes that the one thing that the Bears need more than anything is accountability. He has said that. So, I mean, like, he understands probably better than all those guys you just listed in terms of what's wrong with this team. Just whether or not he has the capabilities to fix it at this point in his career, I think that remains to be seen. And I think
he's certainly not at the top of my list, but it is surprising how much of maybe the Bears, maybe that doesn't say a lot about the Bears because they're picking bad candidates, but I'd take him over a good chunk of this list for sure.
Darius agrees with us saying Cliff is an OC. Listen, guys, leave a comment in here afterwards telling us who your choice is for head coach. This is going to be what we're talking about for the next few weeks. We're in it for the long haul, like I said. So we're going to play the waiting game. We're going to do a lot of speculation. We're going to have a lot of fun on this topic until it's decided. And all we can do is sit here and pray that the Bears don't mess this up. Because if they get it,
real quick. Speaking of speculation, sorry, real quick. A friend of mine who is not a credible source, guys, just a friend of mine, but he's inside on sports news. There's a growing belief among many who are close to Mike Tomlin personally that the Steelers and Tomlin are ready to mutually part ways.
That would be amazing. That would be amazing, dude. If, again, one man's trash is another man's treasure, and Mike Tomlin would be the get of this coaching cycle if that were to happen. Let's all wish it and will it into
he is available and the Bears don't get him. I would be absolutely furious if the Bears have a chance to get him and cannot pull that off. I would be furious.
Hey, there's no better reason to slow play this thing than to just see what happens with Mike Tomlin. Where there's smoke, there's fire in the NFL, guys, and people keep talking about it for a reason. There's something happening there, and I would love to wait and see what that is to have a chance at Mike Tomlin, guys.
Yeah. And Ryan Poles could call about a trade if there's
Now, listen, if you guys want to mutually part ways, we'll give you but what does that take? You know, is that first round picks?
We don't want him. I don't care.
First round picks,
you want him in the pool.
Multiple first round picks. That becomes a tougher proposition for me. I'd rather get them on the open market. But when you know who your guy is, and we've seen it work out for teams when they trade for head coaches, and we've seen it not work out for teams when they trade for head coaches. So, but when you know who your guy is and you have conviction about it, you got to just go get it done, man. Because the one thing that the Bears need more than anything is that leader in this building. Tomlin's only problem is he hasn't won a playoff game since the 2016 season. But he keeps getting there. He keeps getting there. And as Kyle has pointed out, that's without a legitimate quarterback. So his defense and his run game is always on point, and he knows the little things that need to be done to win football games. If it's mutual, his stock drops. Listen, this Tomlin thing could blow up. Who knows, guys? Oh, they signed Tomlin to a new contract this year, Anthony says. Thanks for jumping in, Anthony. Again, guys, leave it in the comments after the show. Let us know who you want to be the next Bears head coach. Chicago Sports Podcast is going to be with you through it all. So is 4-Star Chicago Sports, guys. It's been a long night of podcasting, talking Bears. Hopefully everybody is ready for the second half of this football game, guys. Thanks, everybody, for being here.
Sir.
Kyle, Brandon, everybody bear down. Have a great rest of your night. We'll see you again tomorrow.